All right, let's just jump right in. Think about your wallet, your savings, and, well, how much harder it feels to actually get ahead these days. Welcome to this explainer on Saifedean Amis's deeply influential book, The Bitcoin Standard. Over the next 8 minutes or so, we're going to unpack the fascinating evolution of money. We'll explore exactly why the author believes that looking at the history of money inevitably points to decentralized digital currency as the ultimate solution to our modern economic headaches. It's a brilliant, sweeping journey through time and tech, so let's get to it. This right here is the foundational question Amis asks. Why does one form of money survive while another completely fails? Why does the cash in your pocket buy way less at the grocery store today than it did just 5 years ago? Amis argues that the survival of any currency doesn't actually depend on government decrees or even just societal agreements. Instead, it depends entirely on the physical and economic properties of the good being used as money. If the properties are right, the money thrives. If they're wrong, your purchasing power just collapses. So, Section 1. What makes good money? Let's look at the properties of survival. To really understand a digital innovation like Bitcoin, we first have to look backward. We need to understand how human societies organically choose what functions as money in the very first place. For a good to spontaneously emerge as money in a free market, it's got to possess something called salability across 3 dimensions. First up, scales, meaning you can easily divide it into smaller units or group it together. Second, space, meaning it's easy to transport over long distances. But the third dimension is absolutely the most critical, time. Good money literally must hold its value into the future. Now, we measure this crucial ability to hold value over time using a metric called the stock-to-flow ratio. True hard money must have a massive existing stockpile compared to how much new money can be produced each year. It has to be incredibly difficult and costly to produce more of it, because if it isn't, producers will simply create more out of thin air, completely devaluing your hard-earned savings in the process. Moving on to Section 2. When hard money fails, the easy money trap. So what actually happens when that ratio breaks down? History is packed with incredibly tragic examples. Emilis tells this remarkable story of the Yap Island people. For centuries, they used these massive limestone discs, known as rye stones, as their money. And these stones held extreme value because they had a phenomenally high stock-to-flow ratio. Getting a new one required a perilous, genuinely life-threatening journey across the ocean to neighboring islands. The supply was naturally capped by sheer human effort and danger. But leave it to human ingenuity to ruin a perfectly good economy, right? In 1871, an Irish-American captain named David O'Keefe showed up. He brought modern ships and, more importantly, explosives. Suddenly, what was intensely difficult became incredibly easy. He flooded the island with easily acquired stones. The stock-to-flow ratio literally plummeted overnight, and the monetary value of the rye stones was just completely destroyed. Amis calls this the easy money trap, and it definitely wasn't just Yap Island. The exact same technological trap crushed the wealth of West Africans when European explorers arrived with mass-produced glass beads, matching their local currency, but at a fraction of the production cost. From seashells in the Americas to silver in China, Amis emphasizes a pretty brutal historical truth. A sudden drop in the stock-to-flow ratio always ruins a currency. And that means the average person loses their life savings to the people printing the new money. Which brings us to Section 3, the fiat money era, the massive shift from the gold standard. This vital historical context brings us directly into the 20th century and the global shift away from the ultimate historical hard money, the gold standard. Amis traces a very clear timeline here. See, gold was incredibly saleable across time, but it was heavy and a huge pain to transport, so poor salability across space. To solve this, societies centralized their gold in banks and just used paper receipts. But that centralization, that was gold's fatal weakness. It required trusting governments not to print more receipts than they had gold. Ultimately, they slowly suspended convertibility during major wars, created the Bretton Woods system, and eventually, in 1971, severed ties with gold entirely, mandating unbacked national fiat currencies. And the crucial takeaway is the result of this massive shift. Placing money production under centralized government control allows for the artificial expansion of the money supply. This extracts wealth from everyday productive people and transfers it straight to those sitting closest to the money printer. It leads to the misallocation of capital and what we all experience today as inflation. Yep, that is the exact reason why your grocery bill just keeps going up. Now for Section 4, Digital Hard Money, the Bitcoin Breakthrough. This specific problem of centralized control and inflation is exactly what a pseudonymous programmer named Satoshi Nakamoto sought to solve back in 2008. Bitcoin wasn't just designed to be some quirky digital cash, it was engineered entirely around the stock-to-flow ratio. As you can see, its ratio continually hardens over time compared to gold and national currencies. It was deliberately built to have a stock-to-flow ratio that surpasses even gold, making it, at least in the author's view, the hardest money ever invented. And the true foundation of that hardness is this specific number. By strictly capping the total supply at exactly 21 million coins right in its code, Amos notes that Bitcoin introduces a completely new, genuinely awe-inspiring concept to humanity: absolute scarcity. Unlike gold, where a massive spike in price might eventually justify, say, mining asteroids, a higher Bitcoin price simply makes the network more secure. It cannot create a single extra coin. Let's look at how this actually builds the perfect digital money. Because Bitcoin is secured by a globally decentralized network of computers and unbreakable math, the author argues it operates as a completely autonomous system. It relies on no single issuer at all, meaning it is mathematically immune to the inflation, centralization, and human manipulation that plagued both historical commodities and our modern fiat money. Amos highlights this truly fascinating quote from Nobel laureate economist Friedrich Hayek way back in 1984. Hayek perfectly anticipated the cypherpunk philosophy that would eventually birth Bitcoin over 2 decades later. He knew the solution couldn't be political. It had to be a technological end run around centralized systems, something they simply couldn't stop. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, the future of sound money, a sovereign lifeboat. Looking forward, the author posits that this is far more than just a speculative asset. It is a sovereign lifeboat for individuals navigating an era of deeply unpredictable inflation. And it leaves us pondering a pretty provocative possibility. History shows us that free market monetary competition ruthlessly favors those who choose the hardest money. If Bitcoin continues to offer an unbreakable stock-to-flow ratio, Amos suggests that eventually, even the world's central banks might be forced to adopt the very digital asset they originally dismissed, just to defend their own reserves. It's a really profound way to look at the history and the future of how we store our human time and energy. Thank you for watching this explainer. If you enjoyed this, like and subscribe to In 8 Minutes so you never miss what matters.